am the tax guardian. This sign right here represents the double light of the world. This photo over here expresses that I'm infuriated. I have prepared here a chart to prove what Senator Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said is wrong. He said, we spend too much. We don't have a taxing problem. We don't tax too little. That is false. I'm going to begin over here, excuse me, with these bars here at the bottom. They represent the increased in the national debt from 1945 to 2012, this year. Up here, the presidents are, the Republicans are in red and the Democrats here are in blue. This top line here with the green disc represents the top income tax rate. This line right here with the brown disc is the corporate profit or income tax rate. This dotted line down here at the bottom is the long-term capital gains tax. And this double line going across here is the estate and gift tax changes during this period. Okay, this line here with the yellow disc, that's the percentage of debt to GDP or gross domestic product. I'm going to begin over here in 1945. The top income tax rate here was 94%. Congress passed the Revenue Act in 1945 and reduced that here from 94 down to 86.45. It also reduced the corporate tax here from 40% down to 38. In 1947, Congress passed H.R. 1. It's a bill to reduce the income tax rates. And here, the Congress, both houses are controlled by Republicans. President Truman, he vetoed that bill. And he sent this letter to the House of Representatives. And he explained why. I'm going to read parts of it to you here. President Truman. I have reached the conclusion that this bill represents the wrong kind of tax reduction at the wrong time. And he said, with the present huge debt, public debt, it is of first importance that every effort now be made to reduce the debt as much as possible. And he said, H.R. 1 reduces taxes in the high income brackets to a grossly disproportionate extent as compared to the reduction in the low income brackets. And he said, tax savings to the average family with an income of $2,500 would be less than $30, while those with an income of $500,000 would be nearly $60,000. For those compelling reasons I have set forth, I return H.R. 1 without my approval. Harry S. Truman. Okay. The Korean War over here began in 1950 and lasted till 1953. And the cost of that war, in today's money, is $341 billion. Congress passed the Revenue Act of 1950. And both houses here were controlled by Democrats. And what that did is raise the income tax here, the top rate, from 84.36 all the way up to 91 and to 92. And raised the corporate income tax rate here from 38 to 42 to 50.75 all the way up here to 52%. Now that was to pay for the Korean War. Now long-term capital gains tax down here, capital gains short-term were taxed as income, subject to the different marginal tax rates. But if your capital gains was 6 months or more, you could exclude 50% of your capital gains from income taxation, or elect to pay the maximum rate if your income tax was 50% or more. And that was the law going all back way to 1942, during World War II. Now, the estate tax here during this period was 77%. Exemption, $60,000. The annual gift exemption here, $3,000. Lifetime exemption, $30,000. And this also was true going back to 1942. Okay. During the 8 years that Truman was president here, the national debt here increased only 26.9%. Look here. In 1945, the percentage of debt to GDP was 117%. It reached a peak up here of 121% at the end of World War II. World War II cost in today's money $4.1 trillion. Now with these tax rates in place, the debt to GDP was reduced from 121% here all the way down to 98, to 79, and 74 by the time Truman left office. That means we're paying down the debt of World War II and the Korean War. Now I'm going to move over here to Eisenhower. The top income tax rate here was 91% during this time. The top corporate profit or income tax was 52%. The capital gains tax here, long term, remained the same. The state tax remained the same. Eisenhower, a Republican, fought his own party to keep the top rate here at 91%. He said it was necessary to balance the budget. During the 8 years that he was in office, the national debt down here only increased 11.9%. Now I'm going to go over here to JFK Johnson. As you know, Kennedy was assassinated. Lyndon Johnson took over. Congress passed the Tax Reduction Act of 1964 right here. And again, Democrats here controlled both houses. And they reduced the top income tax here rate from 91% to 77, all the way down here to 70. Likewise, the corporate tax here, the top rate was 52, reduced to 50 to 48. Our involvement in the Vietnam War here began in 1964 and lasted all the way over here to 73. That war cost $738 billion in today's money. Now, Congress here passed the Revenue and Expenditure Control Act of 1968. And what that did is, on income, it placed a surcharge here of 10%, which raised the income tax rate here from 70 to 75.25, all the way up here to 77%. Likewise here on the corporate profit tax, a surcharge of 48, it raised it from 48 up here to 52, all the way to 52.8%. That was a temporary surcharge here to pay for the Vietnam War. Okay. The corporate long-term capital gains tax here stayed the same at 25%. estate tax remained the same during this period. Well, look at here. During the 8 years they were in office, the national debt here increased only 24.8%, and we're paying down the World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War with these taxes. And here, look at debt to GDP percentage was reduced from 56 all the way down here to 42. We're reducing these debts. Okay, now we get over here to Nixon, Ford. Nixon resigned, Ford took over, and Congress passed the Tax Reform Act here of 1969. And what that did is include the alternative minimum tax here for the first time. And the reason for that is that there was an outcry because 155 people with income over 200,000 paid no federal income taxes due to deductions and tax credits. And that was during the Vietnam War here. Okay, this made a couple other changes here. The Tax Reform Act of 1969, what it did here is split income into two categories. Unearned income, except for capital gains, dividends, and interest here, was taxed at 70%. To the top rate, 70%. Well, earned income, now that's what you earn from wages or working. The maximum rate on earned income was 50%. Oh. Okay, now there's one more change here. The the capital gains long term here was increased. It was increased from 25 to 29.5 to 32.5 to 35%. And that was on long-term capital gains of 50,000 or more. Less than that was 25%. Now, the corporate tax here remained the same at 48%. Okay, this was part of this time was during here. Now there's one other change here during this period, and that was the Tax Reform Act of 1976. And what that did here is change the capital gains tax was no longer 6 months. Now, long term was 1 year. Your capital gains had to be held 1 year, or you couldn't get the lower rate. And what this did right here, the Tax Reform Act of 1976, was it united the gift and the estate tax, and increased the exemption from 60,000 here to 120,000 to 134 to 147 to 161 to 175,000, and it lowered the estate tax here from 77 to 70%. Now, one more change. I believe. Okay. One more change here. There was a change here in the long-term capital gains tax. The excluded 50%, on that was imposed a 15% minimum percent tax on the excluded 50%. And that raised the capital gains tax here from 35 all the way up here to 39.875. Okay. During Nixon, Ford, 8 years in office. Okay, listen. I just got a signal. My time's up. This is part 1. Next will be part 2, and I will complete this chart. Thank you.